Alright, welcome back to another 12 Days of Nintendo. And today we're going to have a little bit of a lighter topic. And this is one that's just been coming up non-stop throughout the year, and that is video game movies. And I'm beginning to wonder, are they always a bad idea? Is there such a thing as a good video game movie?
Depends.
Only ones based on not real video games like Wreck-It Ralph was pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Tron series, which are kind of based in the video game world.
But
Resident Evil has definitely been the most successful, I think, of it, just in the fact that they've made like 1 billion of them. But I've never seen any of them either.
But what do you think about movies like the most recent one is Sonic the Hedgehog movie? And then, of course, we've got Detective Pikachu, and the Super Mario Brothers movie is in the works.
I don't have a lot of faith in them. I'm still from a perspective where I want a movie to be good. And I think the audience has changed in my lifetime where you don't necessarily want a good movie that'll stand the test of time. You're going like you're going to an amusement park. You just want to go on a ride. And when the ride's over, you say, yep, that was a ride. So, people want to go and see the spectacular explosions and things like that. Obviously, kids are good. Well, I don't even know on Detective Pikachu if that's supposed to be aimed at kids or teenagers or what. But I'm sure Sonic and definitely the Mario is going to be aimed at kids. And let's be honest, kids will watch anything.
that Sonic's creepy though, dude. That's nightmare fuel.
Yeah, and we've only seen a shadow so far.
Yeah, I'm really curious what's going to happen in that movie, what their take on it is going to be. But not curious enough to actually go to the theater.
Yeah,
It's gonna be on Netflix.
he's going to have to fight Dr. Robotnik.
Ooh.
Yeah, I don't know what their goal is. They're trying to take a character which is, in the games more cartoony, and try and put that in real life and try and like in live action and make it look like it would fit in the real world. It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. You gonna turn him into a superhero? Like what are they doing here?
It worked
Yeah.
for Roger Rabbit.
No, Roger Rabbit was animated.
Yeah,
I wonder how much money they make off of these. That has to be the fuel behind it. I can't really see this as
What?
improving an IP, but I mean, I guess it does get it out there more. But
Well,
Yeah.
that's the other thing about this is, right, Sonic's this character that they have just hoard out for everything at every opportunity.
that's true.
And it seems like was anybody asking for a Sonic movie? No, but we're giving you one anyway. Like can they ever not make a crappy Sonic production? Like it seems like
no,
I mean, okay, Sonic
they're having
Mania
trouble
was all
making
right.
a good video game out of Sonic. So
Yeah, so
maybe you should get that medium down before you start moving it into others.
exactly?
But that said, like there has been some really, really bad from Double Dragon, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Super Mario Brothers.
The original Super Mario Brothers. That's the one that
Yeah.
stands out to me.
Yeah.
There has been some pretty bad, and just because something's popular one way doesn't mean you have to expand it.
I was
It's-
muted earlier, but you mentioned Tron. I mentioned, or I was going to mention Wreck-It Ralph. Those are movies based not on real video games. So it's
Video
like
game theme, kind of.
video
Yeah.
game theme
Yeah.
movies can work okay. Video game movies themselves fail. And
The
then
Last
Resident Evil,
Starfighter. Oh,
yeah, there's a certain nostalgia for that one. But Resident Evil was also that came out. That's a later generation game. That's a game that came out when in the CD-ROM era where games could actually be cinematic. So to me, and stuff like Tomb Raider and whatever, like to me, that's past the point where video games were already cinematic enough on their own that making a movie out of it wasn't necessarily too much of a stretch. Like games in some cases were made with a potential movie franchise in mind, I think. But games based on something old school that's 8 or 16-bit is by definition, it has to be cartoony. It can't. Live action is simply not going to work.
You
It's
mean like the
going to,
Contra movie?
yeah.
Yeah.
For example, a
Well-
Contra movie live action, it's gonna be cheesy. It's gonna
They-
be terrible. There's
they
no
made
way it
Doom.
cannot be.
Oh.
And yeah, case in point, right? That Doom movie was actually not as. Here's the thing. That was one of those ones like Johnny Mnemonic, where everyone told me it was horrible. So when I actually saw it, it really wasn't as bad
Soften
as
the
I thought
blow.
it was going to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they better to stick to, Saturday morning cartoons where you got like the Pac-Man cartoon and the Super Mario Brothers Super Show or
Well,
Captain
you know
N,
we're going to
stuff
get
like
a live
that.
action Pac-Man eventually. It's had so many shows. My daughter watches that on Netflix. Castlevania's had success as an animated, and I think video games would work better in that medium if
Yeah.
they did these as animated.
Didn't Final Fantasy have a series of movies that were animated
did.
or like
I
CG?
think it did, yeah.
Yes,
Some
it
all
did.
CG, yeah.
Were those
That's
good?
what
Had
I've
a
been seeing.
theatrical. I don't know.
Never seen one, but I've seen the advertisements.
But they don't get brought up every time someone brings up a list of horrible video game movies. So
That's a
not even
victory.
that bad. Yeah.
Would Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles count as a video game movie?
No. I don't
No,
think
it was
so.
a cartoon
way.
first, and then they made a game of it. So it started as a kid show or a comic, and then went into other things like movies and video games.
And it's an interesting example, though. There have been games, right? Because games based on movies historically have been terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Except
but-
Aladdin for Super Nintendo.
and The Lion King is also very highly rated. But there are certain games that have managed to transcend that have like some of the superhero games, all the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games for the most part were excellent games in their own right. Like I was not a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was not my era. But I played some of the games and they were solid games. TMNT2 on the NES was I borrowed from somebody at the time. I was, not at all into Turtles, but it was a hell of a game.
Yeah.
I heard good things about GoldenEye from some people, or
Oh, yeah.
007 stuff.
Absolutely. That was a classic, although it might not
Yeah.
hold up were we to play it today.
The controls really don't in the two-stick era, but otherwise, yeah, that's another perfect example of a movie franchise game that totally, like, what do you remember about GoldenEye the movie? That was a Brosnan one, right?
So it was a movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just another James Bond movie, but everybody knows GoldenEye on the N64.
You should make a port of that for Switch. A lot of people buy it.
It
They did
like
it
like
on
Mo
Wii.
said, I don't know that. Yeah, and it got mixed reviews on Wii. I don't know that it would hold up these days, even with a modern control scheme. I think its era has passed. There are better shooters out there
It's
now.
one of those things. Sometimes it's good to be the first, and that was like one of the first ones that really clicked with the consoles. People had been playing first-person shooters and stuff on PC for a while, but that was the first one that really worked on a console, and people were able to get together.
Especially on a Nintendo console.
Yeah, there's plenty of games that have just aged poorly, unfortunately. But movies always age poorly, I think, for video game movies, and most of them aren't good when they come out. So
I have to bring up, since we're talking about video game movies, I have to bring up The Wizard, which I think is just, it stands out as I enjoyed The Wizard, and I haven't seen it in years.
I've got it on DVD. It's quite the commercial.
It is. It's just a giant ad, and it just makes me think of Reggie's like, why don't we do this again?
Yeah. Whenever I hear them talking in that movie, I say, shut up and talk about video games. You could delete the plot from it, and it's a nice nostalgia trip, but the movie itself is not very good.
And I don't think Reggie has much say in I could be wrong. He might be involved in brokering some of these American side studio deals, but I kind of doubt it.
We'll see. There's been a lot of rumors on Legend of Zelda getting a series, whether it be it animated or live action. So
They've had a
Live action would be a disaster, but animated might work. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
they've had a graphic novel series for quite some time, and I think it's been pretty well received based on the Legend of Zelda. So maybe that's setting something up.
Tingle should get his own spin-off.
Definitely. And I think looking at Pokemon in particular, I think about a more mature or just a not so kiddish version, whether it be animated or I don't know if anything could save live action, would be more appealing to older gamers. And I think that might be more well done. I don't know.
Well, and
it's harder to pick out a cartoon, like to pick apart a cartoon, than it is because they can make it look like the game or a cleaned up version of the game. But when it's live action and it's real, you go, Jean-Claude Van Damme's not that character. That's Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Or costuming, like it's always going to be an impression if it's a live action. It's not the real thing. Whereas animated, they can really make it look like the character or whatever. But live action, man. It's just Nintendo themes don't go with it. Like you could make a live action GTA movie and maybe pull it off, or write a live action Dark Souls or a live action, Doom or Wolfenstein. But you can't the themes in Nintendo games tend to be goofy and cutesy and that kind of stuff. You can't pull off with live action without it feeling like the Wiggles or
possibly Zelda, possibly Metroid. Although Metroid is so much about isolation and having no dialogue that it probably wouldn't translate very well.
Here's the thing about Metroid, though, is it would also, even if it were live action, it would be 95% CG.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
You'd have basically a live action person in a suit, and then everything around them everything else would be CG.
Yeah.
It could make a nice art piece, I think. Although I don't know why they would choose to make an art piece out of a video game movie, but it could be.
Say my overall takeaway.
The little Pikmin shorts that they came out with weren't bad. I enjoyed those. But then again, a short isn't a full movie. It was just, little amusing cartoons for a few minutes. From what I've seen of the trailer of Detective Pikachu, I'm interested to see where they go with it. It seems like it has more potential than a lot of the other attempts that have been made in the past. But it's just a trailer, so we'll see.
Yeah.
You've always got to have that mix of pleasing the fans, but making it a relevant movie as well. So, but I think Detective Pikachu is definitely the hope for any video game movie.
The trailer looks much better than I was expecting it to.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know how to go to the theater and see it. I'll wait and see if it comes on Netflix.
Alrighty. Well, we'll wrap up this another day of the 12 Days of Nintendo. Hope you are enjoying them, and be sure and tune in tomorrow, and we'll have another topic, another 12 Day of Nintendo.